Hey folks, today we'll be showcasing some Adam gameplay. Now I've been so caught up with making successful demo videos that I've nary had a chance to try out Adam for myself with all the new cards that have been coming in. I know I did some successful demos before on Adam cards, RNG Key, Logic Bomb, and but those were just touch and go projects. So being able to now that new cards have stopped coming out, it's nice to bunker down and run some Adam for myself, because I really do miss the good old days where criminals ran very aggressively, saw lots of cards from hand, and got to bypass ice. Adam basically offers you all that without the Desperado, without the account siphon, but it's about as good as you're gonna get in the current day and age. Thankfully for us, we don't have to build an Adam list for ourselves, because Worlds just happened. Well, it happened quite a while ago, and there were lots of Adam lists for show. The top performing Adam ended up actually winning the Australian Nationals as well later on. So that is going to be the list we are going to base our list on. Now, it's not going to be an exact match. I'm going to shuffle some cards around here and there, take some cards out, put some cards in. But overall, this is the basic backbone that I'm going to use. For example, Watch the World Burn. I'm not going to use that card. I'm going to swap it with something else. But the main focus here is not deck building at all. Don't go to the comment section and ask me about individual cards. That's not the point of this video. The point is to get acquainted with Adam, get used to the fact that I'll have to trash a card. The first card with a trash cost that I access every turn. Trust me, I'm going to forget that a lot in the upcoming gameplay. And just learn good Adam practices. If you see me misplaying my Adam deck, if you see me making certain stupid plays, then yes, do by all means point that out in the comment section, because that's what we are here for, to learn how to be better runners. Okay, let's get into the game. Alright, today we are up against Near Earth Hub. Now, thankfully, this is not. Near Earth Hub used to be a very versatile ID. You could play anything out of it because it was the best NBN ID back in the good old days. You could play Kill, you could play Fast Advance. There were a lot of things to expect out of NEH. But nowadays, if you see NEH as opposed to a more generic identity like Azmari AdTech, you can be fairly sure this is going to be an asset spam deck. And it's likely to be the variant that I've seen floating about that uses tour guides to protect servers, and has tag punishment in hard-hitting news and psychographics. So knowing what to expect actually makes this matchup slightly easier. We are going to keep our same old directives. There's no reason to use always be running here. It doesn't really help against tour guide. One day, if always be running allows you to break all subroutines for click instead of just one, things might change. We open with a pretty good hand. It basically has every single thing you need in the early game. Lots of money, good draw, and a tutor in emergent creativity to get the correct breaker into your hand. So it's a snap keep here, no questions asked. The real issue here is really the question of whether I'm willing to risk a turn 1 Dirty Laundry so that I can install both of my daily casts. The alternative is taking credits and installing daily casts, but that is bad because firstly, I'm not getting as much money out as opposed to Dirty Laundry, which gives me more money. But more importantly, not playing Dirty Laundry would leave me with 3 cards in hand, not enough to get the safety first draw. I always want to play 3 cards on my first turn as Adam. So even though I'm fairly sure my opponent has hard-hitting news here, as their opening turn basically confirms the sort of NEH archetype I'm expecting, I'm still gonna risk the hard-hitting news, knowing that with emergent creativity, I can still tutor out a misdirection if badly needed. So we're gonna Dirty Laundry R&D here. We can also Dirty Laundry Server too. Both are fairly okay choices. In this sort of NEH deck, typically the assets are high trash cost assets. We are looking at cards like Turtlebacks, obviously, Daily Business Show, Amani Sanai, so team sponsorship, of course. So all these 4+ to trash cards means that if I make a run with 3 or fewer credits, I should be fairly safe with regards to not losing money on neutralize all threats. And that's quite important. I want to end this run on 8 credits so that I can play double daily casts. This successful run shows me a daily business show, and I'm perfectly 1 credit shy of trashing it, so I'm not going to trash it, which is awesome. Even though daily business show is an important card for the co-op, it's more important that I get these daily cards down, and I take a credit. So now my opponent's fairly poor. They could hard-hitting news me here if they wanted to, but it seems like they're not. So I'm going to just continue on my merry way, as Safety First draws me a Shadow Net. This is a card I don't want to play immediately. I would hold it in hand until I need to use it. Now here I'm going to run HQ. I've had some really bad encounters with NEH before, and one common reason why I've been losing my games against NEH is that I haven't been running HQ enough. Only if you actually played NEH before would you know that you get agenda flooded very quickly, even with a daily business show running. If you are triggering your identity ability frequently, you are going to draw a lot of agendas. So HQ is always right for the picking. This is why, and if you're Adam, this is even more incentive to double down on HQ. It is extremely important. I can't stress this enough. It's extremely important to run HQ early and often. So this is why I'm running HQ here, even though I have no breakers. I want to see what that ice is and prepare myself to get through it the next time. I note that it's a wraparound. I drop the Earthrise and continue on my merry way as my opponent sets up double daily business show and gets a couple more assets going. We have to be very careful here, even though one of these assets could very well be an agenda, and we don't want to let agendas slip. The problem with Adam is if you run and you access a card that is not an agenda, you will have to trash it with neutralize all threats. So Adam has some advantages and disadvantages in this matchup. Adam is very, very well suited to running HQ and picking off all the agendas, but on the other hand, Adam is not in a very good position to contest remotes because you can lose a lot of money if you run the wrong remote. So here NEH does the usual business where they res and advance lines to get an install off. Usually they would install a new card in the new remote so that they can get NEH draw on the runner's turn, but here they decided to show up R&D instead. We are very happy to draw a paperclip here off our Safety First draw. My objective here is to play Emergent Creativity to put paperclip in the bin so that I can run HQ and break the wraparound for 1 credit using the paperclip that is now in the bin. So this is exactly what I do here. Using Emergent Creativity, I'm going to fetch an Ngolo because I can't really think of much better else to install. I mean, you look at the list of cards that I can install. The only other option would be Multi-Threader to break so that I can get discounts on breaking ice. So that's possible as well, but I went with Ngolo so that if my opponent ices HQ the next turn, puts one more piece of ice there, I can at least threaten to break it with Ngolo. Alright, my opponent reses Amani Senai here, and they only have 2 cards in hand, and I'm going to access both of those cards. This clearly means that I'm about to hit an agenda. Let's see. I see a project build on top of R&D. This is largely irrelevant because they can very easily choose to bury it with daily business show. I'm going to access an Amani Senai, which I'm forced to trash here because of neutralize all threats. So obviously the second card I'm about to access here is an agenda, but it's not just any old agenda, it's Degree Mill. Okay, interesting. So I have 2 options. I can choose not to steal it, it's going to stay in their hand, they can't bury it because daily business show only allows you to bury cards you've newly drawn. So the Degree Mill is going to stay in their hand forever until they decide to install it in a remote. Or I could steal it right now at the cost of 2 of my installed cards and an Amani Senai trigger. Now looking at the credit levels, you know that I'm going to lose the Amani Senai trigger for sure. The question is, am I willing to do all that just to get 3 agenda points? I was like, heck yeah! 3 agenda points, are you kidding me? You don't give that stuff up. So we are going to pay the price for it. Adam is actually very well placed to steal Degree Mills because the biggest upside to Degree Mill, as you've seen from my Degree Mill successful demo, is that it protects itself very well on turn 1. Most other runners, you can leave your centrals open. Even aggressive runners who run your centrals turn 1 cannot steal Degree Mill until they install 2 cards. But Adam completely bypasses that because Adam has 3 installed cards from the very get-go. So Adam basically just ignores Degree Mill for the most part. So I shuffled neutralize all threats and Ungolo back into my deck, which seemed like a really questionable decision. The rationale for doing that was actually because I wanted to induce my opponent to use Amani Senai to return Paperclip into my hand instead of Ungolo. The reasoning behind that is Ungolo is actually cheaper to install using Emergent Creativity by tutoring it from my deck. Whereas if my opponent bounces Ungolo back into my hand with Amani Senai, it's going to be stuck in my hand forever, which is really awkward. Reason being, I will never be able to afford the 5 credits to drop it back on the table, and it's going to eat up one of my hand size, which is a problem because I want to have the constant, steady safety first draw. So I was actually thinking of the Amani Senai trigger. Right, Degree Mill, I can decide which 2 cards to shuffle back to my deck, no problem. But the Amani Senai trigger is done on my opponent's volition. On my opponent's terms, rather. So if they send the Ungolo back to my hand, it's actually not very good for me. Unfortunately, I did not successfully induce them into bouncing the Paperclip back into my hand. They bounced something else instead. I think it was a daily cast. No matter, the game continues on and I'm still in the lead, 3-2. My opponent sneaked out a project build along the way, and this is what I mean when I say that acid spam can be not a very fun matchup sometimes, because you just really cannot contest remotes, because if you spend money trashing one wrong remote, you're in a lot of trouble, and every agenda point counts. So yeah, unfortunately for us, we couldn't really check that project build there. You really have to call your opponent out correctly when they never advance a project build, and that's really difficult to do. Okay, the game continues on, so you'll notice that I've actually shuffled one of my directives back into my deck, the neutralize all threats. The reason I did that was because I wanted to be able to start running more freely without worrying about being forced to trash assets. Of course, HQ pressure is still important, and I really do want to access 2 cards from HQ rather than just 1. However, I will eventually draw my neutralize all threats sooner or later, so my reasoning is hopefully I can draw it later on when there's a more suitable time to get the neutralize all threats. Thankfully enough, the neutralize all threats actually got shuffled into the top quarter of my deck or something, because I drew it very soon after stealing the Degree Mill. So it was sitting there in my hand, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep my opponent honest by running server 11 there, which turned out to be the Mamba Temple. That consumes the neutralize all threats trigger, which is the first time you access a card this turn with a trash cost. So because I've already accessed a card with a trash cost this turn, if I drop neutralize all threats here and then run HQ, I wouldn't have to worry about being forced to trash any cards, because that trigger window has already passed. So we're going to run HQ here. Going to get 2 accesses thanks to neutralize, but also an RNG key trigger. This one's pretty tricky. Don't really know what number to call. I just went with number 2 because there seem to be a lot of 2 rest cost assets in their deck, and holy cow, it's a Degree Mill again. Okay, we are definitely stealing this one, but the choice of cards will probably be somewhat different this time. We're going to shuffle in 2 zero-cost cards, so that will be as little of a tempo hit as possible. We don't really need the RNG key. There are 3 copies in our deck, so we'll definitely draw into it 1 at some point. And we are also going to put the neutralize all threats back into the deck once more. Are we? No, let's put safety first back in our deck. I'm thinking safety first here, because this one's a pretty difficult decision, to be honest. I don't really want to lose any of the cards on my board. In hindsight, maybe Logic Bomb was the correct card to put back. Probably, I don't know. But by bouncing back my safety first, I am giving up my passive draw. The reason why I did this here was because I knew I was going to end my turn with 4 cards in hand over my hand limit anyways. So I didn't really see myself getting too many more safety first triggers, and I wanted to keep all the cards in my hand, right? Safety first has a downside of reducing my hand size by 2. So, in this situation here, I could, if I still had safety first at the end of my turn, I would be forced to ditch 2 cards, probably a Paperclip and something like the Shadow Net. That would be a loss to me. Even though Paperclip wants to be in the bin, I would rather have Paperclip in my hand to use as emergent creativity fodder. You see, I do have a creativity in my hand. So that's why I went with the safety first over neutralize all threats, even though neutralize makes more sense to shuffle back in, but I wanted to keep all the cards in my hand here. Of course, the downside is I lose the passive draw, and that can always be a problem. But given that I'm on 6 out of 7 agenda points, hopefully I can just plink away at one more agenda to seal up the game, so I don't have to worry too much about the long game and losing the long-term card draw of safety first. So it's at this point that my opponent begins actually drawing ice, and that's going to be pretty difficult to deal with, compounded with the fact that my opponent lands a hard-hitting news at long last. So here I have to make an executive decision: float tags or clear them with emergent creativity into misdirection. Now I intentionally left myself with exactly enough credits to go for the misdirection option. The trouble with that is it really that important to clear the tags? Because they're not actually on kill as far as as far as I know. The deck is, I believe, exchange of information maybe, with psychographics definitely. So I'm not very sure if there was really any need to clear the tags there. And then I realized that I looked at my board and I saw, okay, the only cards I've installed are resources. And they are all very important resources. If my opponent trashes my Finding the Truth and my Logic Bomb, I'll basically have no R&D multi-access, or rather, yeah, any way to look at the top card of R&D, and then losing neutralize all threats would mean that I have no way to pressure HQ either. So those are very bad options. I would rather, keep what I have. So yeah, I chose to clear the tags because my resources were too important. The directives and my Logic Bomb were going to help me very much in this matchup. Now, normally this turn, a good line of play would actually be to run Archives, get a Finding the Truth trigger, and if the truth turns out to be an agenda, run R&D, steal the agenda, win the game with Logic Bomb. I didn't do that because I was still worried about hard-hitting news. In retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have been so worried. But since my opponent drew a bunch of cards with Rashida, I thought it would be a good idea to get some money down before I begin to start running. So things are actually getting a bit trickier here because my opponent realizes that R&D is basically my inroads to victory. If I ever get a good find the truth trigger, they basically lost. So what they did instead was to double ice R&D. This way I cannot Logic Bomb my way into R&D. I need 2 copies of Logic Bomb, which I currently don't have. The remote's also double ice, which is a big concern. As much as I want to siege that remote, I only have 1 breaker to do that with in Logic Bomb. There's a paperclip in the bin, I believe, but is that really going to help? On the remote, I'm not so sure if there's a barrier there. So with all the uncertainty, I think the best line of play here was to actually set up. Draw a card. I saw Liberated Account. This is good money. I could definitely use that. And then here I'm just debating whether I should play the Liberated after taking a credit, or whether I should just continue drawing up. Don't forget my hand size is now 5 because I don't have safety first, but this means I need to be more proactive with drawing my own cards because safety, I'm not going to get drip draw from safety first. So yeah, I guess shuffling in safety first was probably a mistake. It feels like I really need to see more cards from my deck, but I'm not getting that extra passive card draw, which is a free click every turn. It's such a big deal. So I went to HQ. The reason for me, I find myself justifying a lot here, but there's a lot of good reasons why I'm making the moves I'm doing here. My opponent fired a Rashida just now. So the Rashida fire, triggered daily business shows. So most likely they wouldn't keep agendas in their hand. But then they had to get a mandatory draw. And then they install a new card in server 16, which gives them another NEH draw. So they got 2 draws off the top of their R&D, which were not filtered. They are not controlled by DBS. So if they are agendas, they would stay in their hand. Now, of course, it's very possible that if they draw an agenda, that it would go in one of those remotes. But I didn't think so. There might be a chance that they don't put it in the remote, in which case running HQ here is really good, as it allows me to basically sweep their hand. So I'm going to run HQ here, breaking the wraparound with Paperclip and breaking whatever else is outside with Logic Bomb. In this scenario, I was exactly 1 credit short of breaking the IP block with Paperclip as well, which was really annoying. I had to choose there between, breaking IP block with Paperclip, then jacking out, or going all the way through but losing my Logic Bomb. Well, since I was already committed to the run, I used my Logic Bomb and I saw 2 cards here. psychographics, and a hard-hitting news. Oh, what a combination. Okay. Again, because I have misdirection on the board, that's not a big worry. If they land a hard-hitting news, I'm just going to clear all the tags with misdirection, and life goes on. It's very unlikely that I'll be able to play the Liberator account from my hand, but I'm really trying to just shoot for a quick win here. As we see that my opponent overrides their guarded Marilyn remote with a new card, and even advances it. So that's definitely an agenda, and we can almost certainly not contest it. While I was playing this game, I blanked on what sort of ice my opponent could throw at me, but in hindsight, it was very obvious that at least one of those ice was a tour guide that I would never be able to break. With so many rare assets out, this deck has no way to contest that short of logic bombs, which I don't have any more of. So what to do here? My opponent has their draw and money engine all set up, and I'm very, very far away from finding my final agenda. I draw into safety first, and I feel like, okay, I really, really, really need the passive draw here. So I'm gonna drop the safety first, and to get the passive draw, I need to even go down to number of cards below hand size, so I dropped the Shadow Net. Of course, I could have dropped the Brain Chip here, but I felt that Brain Chip at this point giving me extra hand size and memory does absolutely nothing in this matchup. It's not like I'm going to assemble a super big rig requiring 6+ memory or anything, and nor is there a reason for me to hold so many cards in hand. I'm not running against an Obo Carter deck. So Brain Chip is actually a huge tempo setback. I would rather use that click to install Shadow Net instead, which is free, and Shadow Net allows me to sack agendas, which I promptly did there. I used Shadow Net to sack a Degree Mill for a sure gamble so that I could avoid this Amani Senai trace. I did not want my opponent to trace the Amani Senai and bounce my paper clip. That is something I would not be able to recover from. So yeah, losing in 3 points just to get 9 credits off Sure Gamble is really painful, but I really didn't have a choice here. It felt like I was kind of cornered into making this move, and now I have to work extra hard to find the remaining 4 agenda points. I was so close to victory, but it seems like I just can't make any headway through because I don't have my breakers set up. I would feel a lot more comfortable if I Ngolo on the board, but because I shuffled it back in with the Green Mill, it's not gonna happen. So I'm gonna get a Find the Truth trigger here. I don't see anything. So I'm just gonna set up with money, and hey, another logic bomb. This is gonna help out a lot on a Hail Mary run. So my opponent does stuff. Let's see if they attempt to threaten an agenda score this turn. They install a new remote, getting an NEH draw. They install another new remote, getting an NEH draw, and they install something in server 12. Now, server 12 could be a project build that wins them the game, so important to note that. At this point, I decided, okay, I can contest R&D, I can contest HQ, maybe get an agenda here or there, but it's quite important to first see if they actually have something on top of R&D. We are not going to run R&D blind. We need to make sure that the top card is actually an agenda before running. So we're going to run HQ first, going to see 2 cards and get an RNG key trigger. We see Mamba Tempo on top of R&D, so we know not to run R&D. And now we are going to guess 2 once again with RNG key. Seeing 2 cards from hand. Lady Liberty, which I'm forced to trash there, and Psychographics. So yeah, neutralize all threats, really neutralizing my credit pool here. I'm losing so many credits trashing cards that I don't really want to trash. Yeah, there's not much else I can do here, so I'm just going to take money and hope that they don't have the winning agenda in server 12. Yeah. Alright, so passing the turn over to them. Yep, they do advance the card. It is an agenda. It is the build that they score to win the game. Well, I can't be too upset about losing that game, apart from the fact that it's asset spam, and I generally don't really enjoy playing against asset spam. I felt like I knew the deck, I knew what it was up to, and given that, I played just about as well as I could have. You saw that I came so close to winning by stealing 2 Degree Mills, getting up to match point, and I actually had a 66% chance of winning the game, because on one of the subsequent HQ runs where I accessed their 3 card hand, I actually whiffed access 2 non-agenda cards when the 3rd card was an agenda. So that was really sad. Remember the time when I ran after they did a Rashida draw, and then a mandatory draw, and then a near hub draw. Yeah, that run would have netted me the winning agenda 2 in 3 times. I really don't see any other way I could have found an agenda, really. Even if I did see an agenda on top of R&D with Finding the Truth, I would not have been able to access it because it was guarded by good ice and I didn't have my breakers out. There was just no tempo to get breakers out because I was running aggressively. Not to mention that, if I can't get agendas off R&D and I got as much as I could have off HQ, the only other realistic place was to challenge the remotes. The scoring remote ended up being double tour guide, so there was absolutely no chance of my deck getting through that scoring remote. Really, the only other agenda I could have contested was the naked Bew right at the start of the game, but you know, uh, it's, it just comes down to get that sort of guessing game. I can say, okay, I lost the guessing game, so be it I lost the game. It sucks to feel that way, that you've lost the game because you made a wrong guess, but that's how asset spam works. In terms of making good plays, I really can't fault myself, as I think I ran about as well as I could have. On the other hand, however, I think there were some questionable decisions I made with hand and board management. The degree mill triggers were very tricky. You don't get to practice shuffling cards in with degree mill a lot. Choosing Ngolo was very, very, very questionable. I really don't know if that was the correct choice, but I really did not see any other way out. If I were to shuffle in my directives, which cost 0, which seemed like the correct choice, I don't know. The directives were all very useful. Find the truth is R&D pressure, neutralize all threats, HQ pressure, and safety first draws me more cards so I can actually get into set servers because I would draw cards like logic bombs, like money to fuel my paperclip. So I really can't see any other way I should have done that, because honestly, if you look at the endgame board state, I never needed to use Ngolo. Sure, it might have gotten me through R&D. In contrast, you saw how I was just completely stuck, unable to run R&D, but even if I did not shuffle Ngolo back into my deck, they would have made me bounce it with Armani Sanai anyway. And as you saw from my economy that game, I never had the money, the 5 credit spare to reinstall the Ngolo in front of an Armani Sanai. No way. So yeah, Ngolo just doesn't seem like the right fit this game. It costs so much to install and it's so easily reverted with an Armani Sanai trigger. If anything, I think the biggest mistake was actually shuffling in my directives time and again to degree mill when I really should be shuffling in my logic bomb instead. Logic bomb's a good card obviously, but by shuffling it into my deck, it means that I can redraw it again with safety first down the line. Whereas if I shuffle in one of my directives, that is a part of my engine loss, so I would be going a lot slower. And logic bomb being still on the table, that's just a one-time benefit. Gets me through a server one time, that's it. So yeah, I think if there's one aspect I could have improved, it would be choosing different cards to shuffle in. I still don't know if I would have won given the circumstances. I would have to play out that game to find out. It's really tough to tell, so I really don't know. If y'all saw any better plays I could have made, do let me know. Otherwise, that's it for this video. Nope, just kidding. Nope, we're not gonna let it end just there. We are going into overdrive. We are gonna showcase a second Adam gameplay video. Come join me at the table. Our second opponent of the day is running an outfit deck. Just like any H, once you see the identity, you can be fairly sure of the archetype they're on. This is not a generic ID. You can be very sure they will be killing you, because what else would you do with that much money as Wayland? So we are quite happy to actually see this opening hand. It's kind of like our first game, but without the emergent creativity, so no program tutors, but we have enough burst economy to actually run turn 1, and that's very important because without the dirty laundry or the sure gamble, we can't really run against someone who plays too big to fail on turn 1. Here we can play all these cards from our hand. We can make runs on centrals. We can play pretty aggressively because it's not good to hard-hitting news when your opponent can easily clear the tags. I see preemptive action in their hand, so I'm like, okay, you just put 2 cards in the bin on your first turn, and I just saw the preemptive action. I'm gonna keep you honest here. I'm gonna run the bin. There's a hostile takeover there. Gotcha. And that's huge. That's really huge because that once we drop our brain chip, our hand size goes up to 4. So yeah, that really puts us out of, it gives us a lot more options with safety first, and that's really awesome. So we safety first draw into employee strike here, which is really nice for neutering some of our opponent's credit gain from their ID ability, making sure that if they play another too big to fail, for example, not that they can because they're too rich now, they're not getting 3 extra credits. Okay, so upgrade on HQ. So that kind of deters us because if we run HQ, not only do we have to break the ice on HQ, but we'll also be forced to trash whatever that upgrade is, which puts us possibly in hard-hitting news range. So we want to get money. I think it's a pretty good idea here to play Symmetrical Visage and then draw to get efficiency. So every turn we'll be clicking to draw, getting money, getting cards, and then probably playing an Employee Strike as well. So we're gonna do exactly that. Being on 8 credits is a bit risky to run, so we're not going to run on their open R&D. Instead, we're just going to keep drawing for solutions, and we're going to find them pretty quickly. We have Nanotech as our Sentry Breaker, Paperclip as our Barrier Breaker. All looks pretty good until they res a holy and Bolus? Really? Okay. Well, okay, if you want to play with champ cards, so be it. So yeah, new champ card, very iffy include in outfit because you're giving your opponent so much bad pub to run through your servers. And bowlers you usually want to play in a more taxing deck, but I guess it works. The thing is, the more power counters there are on Embolers, the harder it is to get into HQ. And that's a big problem because we do want to get into HQ as Adam, as always. A very aggressive runner that benefits from HQ multi-access. So it seems like our opponent is not only, protecting their Embolers very well, it seems like they are super flooded. Why else would they put so much ice on HQ and none on R&D? Gotta think about that. So we keep drawing, we see a Femme Fatale. This is a really nice card if we had an Immersion Creativity in hand. Booyah! Found it! Okay, so we can Immersion Creativity Femme for another Femme. That's always an amazing combo to have. Not going to be very useful right now, but the bigger concern on my mind is actually the Embolers. If I keep playing passively as I'm doing now, the Embolers is just going to rack up more and more counters, making it harder and harder to counter. So I actually want to start running here. The question is just which server. I could run R&D or Archives to diffuse the Embolers, remove 1 power counter for it, or I can go straight onto HQ, force them to res some ice here. This allows me to scout out what sort of cards my opponent has on HQ, what sort of ice rather, and bring out the correct solution for that. So in this case, we saw that the end the run on HQ was a the outer ice, probably a porous ice that doesn't end the run or something expensive. Clearly, they weren't willing to res it. They, chose to leave it unres and use the Hortum to keep me out of HQ instead. So that's very important to note. It also means that a single Ungolo can get me through HQ. Ungolo breaks the Hortum since it's a code gate, and whatever's outside can be dealt with Ungolo. Right? Important to keep that in mind. Our opponent plays another too big to fail, pushing them back into the 15 credit range. We're still at a healthy 11 credits, so that's important to note. I put Ungolo back to the top of my stack here. Some weird things happened because I tried to get a safety first draw when I shouldn't have, because I thought my hand size was 5 when it was actually 4. Completely forgot about safety first. I keep forgetting my directives as Adam. So what happened here? I used Find the Truth, and Find the Truth saw an agenda on top of R&D in Project Atlas. I was simply running Archives there to diffuse the Embolers power counter, but since I saw an agenda on R&D, might as well guarantee R&D access by using Femme Fatale on the Morcellas. You saw I played click 1 was Run Archives, clicks 2 and 3, Emergent Creativity into Femme onto Morcellas, so that I can bypass it for 3 credits, stealing the Project Atlas on it, and last click, obviously running the Atlas. So that was a very nice maneuver there. What was initially a run to turn off Embolers ended up being 2 agenda points scoring in my favor. 2 agenda points going into my score area. So that was pretty good. Denying Project Atlas to Wayland is always something you want to see as the runner. And now we'll see if our opponent actually hard-hitting uses us. No, they don't. Instead, they play Seesaws. Very interesting choice. So we are going to get tagged here. Just 1 tag. So we take those. That's not the worst deal in the world. No exchange going to happen. No close accounts. They're just trashing our neutralize all threats. Wow, they must be really flooded. Wow. And then I looked at the credit pool. They had 1 credit left after that trace. Huh. Okay. Right, so they are very, very vulnerable now. If I had a code gate breaker, I would be running all over HQ. That's not the case though, so we're going to run Archives to defuse the Embolus counter on HQ. We see the top card of R&D is Rashida Jahim, which I really don't care about because they spend all their ice on Centrals. They have no money or ice to get their Rashida going. So the Rashida is a non-factor. You'll notice that I actually have 2 bad publicity right now because they played too big to fail so far. Note that the second too big to fail didn't actually even give them extra 3 credits from the ID. They're still under employee strike, so the too big to fails are really failing. Now they play 2 cards here, one of which is probably the Rashida I saw. It's time to run it, so we're gonna run it. Let's see the first card. I'll be forced to trash this card to... Oh no, neutralize all threats is not installed. I see Boom on top of R&D. Now normally people would actually run R&D here to trash the Boom. It's not a good idea to do that. We want them to draw the Boom. Why? Because Boom is a dead card. Why am I going to waste 1 credit to trash it and 3 to break Mossless when I can just let them draw this dead card? It's not going to help them at all. It's not like I'm getting tagged anyway because I've misdirectioned my hand. Even if they draw a hard-hitting news now, they are not going to land tags on me. So I'm feeling very comfortable with my board state now. And yeah, all I'm missing really is just my Ungolo, which I can easily get with Emergent Creativity. I see they have 2 credits there. They don't even have enough money to power up their Embolus. Right? Uncharacteristically poor for outfit, but that's mostly because they haven't actually drawn their money cards yet. It's kind of a pity. They've drawn 2 too big to fails, but no hedge funds or IPO, so they're really struggling with money here. I was trying to angle for some way to run HQ this turn. It feels like this is a very good turn to run HQ. It's just a matter of ordering my clicks to ensure that I can run HQ, get an Ungolo out, and see 2 cards from the hand, because you bet they are flooded by now, given the way that they are playing so conservative on HQ. At the same time, I'm being very wary of getting hit by a hard-hitting news, so I'm playing very conservatively here. Gonna fetch the Ungolo with Emergent Creativity, run 3rd click in case I hit something random that I don't desire. And let's see if they can res the outer ice. They can't, so I'm gonna break the inner ice with Ungolo. It's fairly cheap because I have 2 bad pup. We are gonna see 1 card only plus Embolus because neutralize all threats got trash. We see a global food which we steal and an Embolus which we are forced to trash. Well, we wanted to trash that anyway, so that's fine. You see that I ended my turn on 4 credits, so this is very risky, right? They can credit hard hitting news. So this is why I'm kind of worried about credit levels, you know, playing very conservatively, not dropping the daily cast because you never know when the hard hitting news could strike. So here they play 2 big to fail and draw 2 cards. Well, that's not a very good turn for them. Can we get into HQ again? I don't think so, but we are gonna run archives and see if they have dropped a bunch of agendas in the bin. Nope, but we see a Project Atlas on top of R&D again. Man, my opponent has been really unlucky with the top deck R&Ds. I top decked the game-winning Project Atlas here. That was obviously a very lopsided game. It turned out that my opponent had a pretty okay starting hand, but just kept drawing agenda into agenda into agenda. So usually I don't showcase these sorts of lopsided games because they are an unfair representation of either or both decks. But in this particular gameplay, I wanted to actually showcase how a Corp would play very differently versus Adam. If they were playing against any other runner, their early ice, their Hortum, which was their inner HQ ice, would definitely go on the remote. Their opening turn might be something like install Hortum, install Oaktown, advance Oaktown, you know? That's a pretty good play against basically any other runner. Against Adam, you can't do that because they can drop Logic Bomb, run the remote, steal the Oaktown, and now you are in a very terrible position. So, yeah, Adam just changes the equation so much because you're forced to put your early ice on HQ and R&D instead. Because if you don't ice R&D, Adam's going to zoom ahead with RNG key. If you don't ice HQ, there's no reason for Adam not to run HQ. You know they're going to run HQ with neutralize all threats. There's no question about that. So, yeah. Whereas with other runners, even if you're agenda flooded, you know, you can still put your ice on the remote, knowing that they probably won't run HQ too aggressively because every click wasted on HQ is a click not spent defending against hard-hitting news, which could easily end the game. The fear, the threat of economic disadvantage converted into a tag and bag is often what deters a lot of other runners from playing aggressively against Wayland early, but Adam doesn't give a shit about that. Right? We just run, we just keep running. Granted, we had a good opening hand, but still, always be running, man. Yeah, Adam. So yeah, being forced to adapt their strategy didn't work out in my opponent's favor. They couldn't get anything going, their Rashidas failed to fire, and they were just stuck with too many agendas in hand and no way to defend them. Eventually, I managed to get my Ungola out, and that was the beginning of the end. Not much else to say about the game. So yeah, how do you like this video so far? It's a bit different from my usual videos. While there's still gameplay and gameplay analysis, there was absolutely nothing about deck building or theory crafting at all, because I wanted to focus more on how to play good Adam well rather than how to build Adam well. If you like this sort of video, comment in the comment section and let me know what you think I could have done better to enhance my gameplay analysis. Obviously, I'm not a pro Adam player, so don't expect top tier analysis from me, but I'm learning along with y'all, and I hope you appreciate the learning journey as well. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and happy net running. I'll see you in the next video.